All right, 6 बजे Sunday. So welcome to Real Talk with Rahul. And I am here, आपका साथी. हर दूसरे संडे आपके साथ आता हूँ बहुत सारे current events, political news, panel speakers के साथ. और आज हमारे साथ हैं दो amazing guests. Aditya Saklani, who is a farmer by trade, and he's keen into doing these kind of things, and also he's got lots of awesome opinions which we love. And also we have Mr. Giri from Reliance Forex and Reliance Travel. Welcome to you both.
Thank you, Rahul. And before we start, let me congratulate you on getting the award for your talk.
Oh, thank you so much. I was surprised actually. I don't know how I got that, but thank you to all my guests and awesome listeners. Thank you so much, and welcome Aditya. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, Mr. Giri, we'll start with you because there has been a lot of chat around policies now. Now the election is coming close. So, Labour introduced this. It's been a long time waiting, to be honest. I was waiting for Labour's policies. I'm like, when are they coming? $20 cap on public transport. I think we knew there's something around cost of living coming, but we didn't know what, right? So now that this has come, what are your first take? What was your first take on it?
The first, I guess, is pretty encouraging. I would feel that it will lift them by about 5 percentage points because there's a good percentage of 1.8 million people live in offline, and if most of them, many of them do use the public transport, but not necessarily because the transport system is still not great. But having said that, once they hear that there's a cap of $20, which is very good, people tend to be going that side.
Yeah. Aditya, what about you? What was your first take? Good, bad, okay?
Well, my first take actually was a bit negative. I thought it was just them pandering to their own voter base, but then the more I looked into it, I started to have real appreciation for the policy. So when it came to things of how they're going to fund it through the New Zealand Land Transport Fund, or how they're targeting it and how they've done the modelling around it, I think it's a pretty positive policy.
But I felt the modelling was not done correctly because they're saying $65 million. Now, $20 cap, they're saying almost, a million people use it. I was a bit confused, and the commentary around it has been that there still needs to be more details.
Yes, so the Taxpayers Union did their own independent modeling, and if you were to stretch it out to as much as you wanted to push it, I think it's something like $183 million a year. Yeah. So even National's figures is like completely off the wall that they've tried to give. So the Taxpayers Union is an independent modeling, and even though it's $183 million a year, you have to realize the New Zealand Land Transport Fund has I believe, something like $200 million they didn't use in the last year reporting.
Yeah. But see, what my issue is, Mr. Giri, I'll come to you. What my issue is, this is a very typical Labour policy, where they throw money at the problem. I don't want to throw money at the problem, right? Because it can't be just anything comes up and you throw money at it. We know that, but do you think this is a bribe?
Yeah, see, what's happening is basically this is throwing up money. Definitely, I agree with you on that aspect of it. But having said that, if you look in terms of the amount of spending that's happening at this point of time, the public needs something. Okay, they need to cut down on expenses, and there is no better way at this point of time than to cut down probably with the public transport.
Yeah.
Okay, if they're going to save $20-30 per week, it's going to be pretty sizable. We may not appreciate that this money is going waste, and obviously it's not going for anything that is more constructive. They're not going to add more routes. They will not be able to add more fleet. They will not be able to, the services might not run properly. There might be a lot of cancellations of services, which we used to see years back. Those sort of things could happen. But having said that, a policy announcement like this was far overdue. It should have come in from National, but it has come in from Labour, which obviously means that Labour is got the first mover advantage with regard to this particular policy announcement.
Aditya, in terms of if we're looking at just this policy, do you think that obviously when it comes to cost of living, which people are struggling with, I feel the reason I have a problem is not that I have a problem with the policy, is that I would love to see from Labour and National growth policies, innovation policies, obviously some relief policies, but relief is not a sustainable thing.
Well, whenever we're looking at the cost of living crisis, we have to understand this is not something we can just snap away with our fingers and get done with it. This is a systematic economic issue. And the big thing, without talking about the microeconomic policies, all you have to understand is that there is a substantive difference between private and public debt. It is much easier for the government to take on the burden of the people and to sustain that and then eventually pay it off as they go, than the people to hold on to that debt, then collapse and then basically go into a bad place in their life.
But we can't take on this forever.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
So this is not a policy which I don't think it's a match winner, but hey,
Yeah.
it's a start.
It's basically a start. We need to agree, as I said, that it's not going to sustain for too long.
Yeah.
Okay, and but having said that, if you really look in terms of how the rising cost has been creating a lot of problems within the households, this is probably a welcome step, and it has come at the right moment for Labour. They announced it at the right time, but having said this, the implementation is only in 2027. So we still need to wait for a long time to see whether it's going to be actually implemented or not. And it is also subject to if feasible. So if at the end of the day in 2027, if it turns out that it is not going to be feasible, then this might be scrapped. Who knows?
The details, the devil's in the details. Aditya, were you surprised with the latest poll? अगर आप आपने अभी तक नहीं देखी latest polls, इसमें आया है कि the center right, which is National Actor News and First, has actually gone up, and Labour's actually come down. Which I was like, okay, which makes the race now quite even. But Labour was quite well ahead. So Aditya, were you surprised or you expected this?
Not really, no. Polling is something that always changes. It flutters. Things happen. I think it's more to do with the fact that parties that are kind of within the left-wing coalition, like Labour or Tapati Modi, there's a massive battle happening right now for the Modi seats and for left-wing voters. So I think it's more to do with an internal fight than it is general unpopularity.
Later on the show, 6:30 Dr. Paramjit Parma is joining us on the phone. उनसे काफी सारे सवाल करेंगे. But right now I have two amazing guests in the studio with me. Now आज का topic is all around जो अभी Labour की new policy आई है on the public transport. उसके बाद the polls, there's a bit of discrimination going around. There's a little bit of around budget. बहुत सारी बातें करेंगे. Whatever's happened in the last couple of weeks. So I have Aditya and Mr. Giri from Reliance here with me. Mr. Giri, I'll come to you now. So this polling came out, okay. I was a little bit surprised because till now, I felt Labour was sort of riding the wave and people were like, Labour, Labour, Labour. Obviously it's shifting like rapidly, or it's well, people have not made up their mind. What do you think?
Yeah, obviously it's too early. The policies haven't come in, policies have not been announced, so obviously it will take a bit of time for people to digest what these parties are promising and what they intend to do. The policy which has been most talked about has always been in the recent has been the $20 cap on transport, which has been most talked about in the last few days. And obviously, this poll, what has come in last, did not cover that. So it was much before that. It was after the budget, but before this policy was announced.
See, ACT has announced immigration policy. Labour announced their 3 GP visits, right? They've announced that, so that was in this. I'm skeptical about all that. Anyways, National has come out with a budget, and NZ First hasn't formally announced, but they're saying they're going to announce their immigration policy as well. But they're sitting in a good place.
You see, if you look at it, it's not been great for, National is sitting at 30%. It's not that, it's gone up 34 or 35%. They're still at that 30% at this point.
Yeah.
Labour is still ahead at 32%, which obviously this policy might tilt in favor of Labour.
Yeah.
But having said that, what is most important is to see how New Zealand First, New Zealand First and ACT do. If ACT and New Zealand First can pick up their share by another couple of more points, which obviously happens closer to the polls, New Zealand First has been always getting out 4% or 3% more.
Yeah.
So if they're sitting maybe at about 11%, and if they head to about 14 to 15%, then I think the race is going to be totally different as to who the left right wing can win.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, who will be heading the government might just be the new question mark.
Aditya, have you heard of the Opportunity Party?
I have.
What are your views on them? I'm telling you, they're like, I think they're the boogeyman.
Oh, you're gonna hate me for this then. On stream, I watched a couple of videos, a couple of interviews of the current leader of the Opportunity Party, and man, I was in love with their tax policy.
That's what I'm saying. I think they're gonna pull through.
Yeah, I think, man, I think the electorate she's trying to go for, I think it's Mount Albert.
Yeah.
I don't think she's going to win that. It looks kind of scary with the current
I think it's
polling.
Quille Wong.
Yeah, Kwale Wong, I believe that's what her
Wong or
name is.
something like
But
that.
yeah, like I hope she does get that.
She could be the kingmaker, Mr. Giri.
See, it is possible because she's sitting at 3.2% currently,
Which is good.
and then anything closer to 5% is pretty good. 3.2% is not bad at all.
And
so-
they are targeting Labour's electorate.
Yeah, I actually think, I'm going to be honest with you, I think Labour should start at least opening the idea to working with with Greens, because I think the Green Party stopped being a party of focus and green policy more than they did like left-leaning economic policy. So I think the top party is actually a better member in a coalition in that sense.
Yeah.
But having said that, let's also remember that Green Party always has been over the 10% threshold. So obviously they've been polling more than 10 to 11%.
Yeah.
And just going in for a 3% party which gets 3%, and a party which votes
Yeah.
more than 11%,
Yeah.
that's going to be a big change. And that might not be what Labour wants.
Oh yeah.
It's a tough one, but I think overall, the reason we're saying is because, see, ACT also started like this. David Seymour was this lone warrior,
Yeah.
he's going, and they've got it up to 10%, So top party, I am saying it could be, I'm just revealing it on the show. If not this election, definitely next election. I feel this election they'll get a seat, maybe two, but I'll tell you why. I feel people sometimes get frustrated with these major parties because it's same. So there is a group of people out there who are like, for the sake of change, they want different people. I feel there is a voter out there who wants that. Obviously, NZ First and ACT and Greens try to tap into these people. We're making radical statements. But I think Top's got it. Anyways, hey, Aditya, what about, I feel New Zealand has sometimes suffered in local elections, in local board, not in thing, with turnout. Young people, you're a young person, you're a young farmer.
Yeah.
Is there an issue, turnout?
I've been kind of mulling over this idea in my head for a while now.
Do young people vote?
No. Simple answer, no.
I think if young people don't vote, 34, the median age of Auckland is about 34.
Yeah.
Okay. If the median age is 34, and if the youngsters don't vote, then I think we are going really.
We're going backwards.
Yeah, we're going
There's
backwards.
a reason why no politician wants to touch superannuation.
True.
My feeling is at this point of time, nothing is going to change because nobody's going to touch it at this point of time because Winston Peters has been very clear
He's
that
very
he doesn't
clear.
want anyone to touch it.
Yeah.
So we always keep talking about Winston being the kingmaker and not the king. But last time I did mention that he could be the king.
Yes.
So let's wait and watch as to what will eventually happen. Currently, I don't see any great new policies coming up. A signature policy that will define New Zealand politics. We haven't seen anything of that
I
sort.
haven't seen anything.
So that's the reason why any new party that comes into the picture tries and get some polling, get some good, nice votes. I think people are going to look in terms of what is it that is going to be new, what is it that they would probably bring to the table, and how people are going to be receptive to the idea of a new party coming in, getting new programs, announcing new policies, and the way forward for the next 10 years.
Let's just change the little angle a little bit, okay? Let's just change the topic. Let's just talk about, I'm especially referring quite openly to things like Brian Tamaki, right? My subtopic is around religion, race, Destiny's Church. Aditya, what is your view on, look, we have freedom of speech.
Yeah.
Freedom, there is a fine line between freedom of speech and discrimination and sort of, just, what do you think about that? What do you think about this?
I'm going to ask you a very quick question. How controversial do you want me to be?
No, you can be controversial because end of the day is freedom of speech.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But people don't want to hear, as soon as they hear something they don't want to hear, they're like, oh, that's offensive. But it's freedom of speech.
Yeah, I'll put it like this. I think Brian Tamaki should be convicted.
Okay.
I think he blatantly abuses free speech. And if you listen to anything he says, like it's very clear putting hatred on very certain groups of people for who they are, what they believe,
Yeah.
and what their sex, gender, or creed is. That is what egalitarian democracy is built upon, and then he sends his people after them specifically for that.
Yeah, I mean, look, that is one way, but if he is not physically harming you, he is obviously his words are harming and his
Yeah.
words are dividing.
Yeah.
His words are controversial, so he is definitely can be pulled up for that, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, he comes out and he says, well, if you allow all these other protests to happen and Palestinian protests to happen and this protest to happen and anybody, like, we did a peaceful protest when the attack happened in Kashmir, peaceful protest.
Yeah.
He's not doing a peaceful protest, right? And so he comes out and but he says, hey, but my religion doesn't want LGBTQ, my thing doesn't want, so I can say I don't want it. Why I don't want to teach my kids that? But your view is that, but then, where do we draw the line on this?
No, obviously this is a very, very, very sensitive thing which is
Yeah.
happening all over the world. It's not just in New Zealand that we are experiencing this sort of a race issue.
Yeah.
It does happen. And then you do feel that he's a person who has never won an election, but it's also, everyone says, oh, please ignore him, but it's hard to ignore because, the social fabric that gets really hit
Yeah.
by what he says.
Yeah.
And then we are a very peaceful nation. We are a nation where every 2 out of 5 people are migrants. So obviously, when you look at that sort of a thing, and when he talks about creating a rift within our societies, it's really bad. And then I think somebody has to take him to task and say, look, this is not what any religion preaches. Every religion just preaches peace and to coexist with others. And obviously my feeling says that it's just during the elections these sort of things happen, and eventually all of us share the same table for share the same meal.
But I think I can get Aditya's views on this later. I mean, after I finish, because he's quite certain on no, this is what Brian Tamaki. But I'll tell you one thing, right? His support is growing. Okay, surprisingly, you and I may think differently. Every person in New Zealand doesn't think like us. Okay, Shane Jones and Vincent Peters' support is growing. They're not as radical, but they're following this path where it's a politics of division, it's a politics of religion, it's a politics of or New Zealand first. Their name, New Zealand first. They're taking it literally, and it's just when you are trying to progress these unpopular views, right? You are creating a divide, but they are not a major party, so they can come out and say all these things. Now, Brian Tamaki is saying, well, you know what, end of the day, how can you say I'm wrong? Because we are just talking about opinions and views here, so why is my view wrong? So you're saying he should be convicted on the fact that the way he's going about it, or
sophistry as a concept should not be thrown out. If you say certain words and certain if I was to create a dot here and a dot here, all my followers need to do is connect those 2 dots.
Yeah.
That's not an excuse, okay? If you make those 2 dots, that is completely on you. So the actions that follow after your words should be taken very seriously.
Obviously, there is certain things happening, but it's a topic where I'm going to actually hire Dr. Pramji Parmar as well, because she represents that, the ethnic communities. So I'll be very interested to know her, because I have a strong view on how there is a growth in discrimination and there is a growth in racism. I have felt it and I'm seeing it, and I debate with everybody about this. Now, Mr. Giri, before I take a break, I'll just get your final views on the fact that, look, this social cohesion, are we having a problem with social cohesion? Or is just because it's that kind of year, a few people are jumping up and down. But I don't know, I'm a little bit confused right now, because I've never felt so much, sometimes attacked this much previously. Maybe it's online, maybe it's to do with the amount of Indian immigrants who have come in, maybe it's to do with struggling of economy, people don't have money, people don't have jobs, so they're pointing fingers at somebody.
See, all these things happened basically because of economic reasons as well.
Yeah.
Because when a lot of immigrants do come in, and immigrants are not coming in just because they want to come.
Yeah.
It's just because you're welcoming them.
They're
It's just
invited.
because it is your policy.
You're giving
it is the
them
government's
visas.
policy. It is a government's policy that has brought them in.
Yeah.
They just can't walk in.
Exactly.
Okay, they've allowed them to come in, and those people are contributing it. So if you look in terms of the 187 billion is what as immigrants have contributed. So when you look in terms of the journey of an immigrant, he works very hard. He
Yeah.
works long hours, maybe even 18 hours, does multiple jobs.
Exactly.
It takes away some people's jobs, no doubt about it, because you need to be efficient. And then we are also an aging population. Sometimes, if you look at it, if you don't take away the immigrants, take out the immigrants, we are an aging population. So
Yeah.
we need to be connecting to make sure that we are growing as an economy, and we need this immigrants to serve the nation. And having said that, this social cohesion, these sort of factors do come in many of the countries. We do have the far right, which are winning elections as well, and they work on this particular philosophy or policy that we talk about of creating a bit of a race issues. But I think mostly it will be temporary because people who work hard are always welcome. And people who don't contribute, but wrong immigration policies, getting the wrong people into the country, and that's where the problem really arises.
थोड़ा reflect करते हैं on Paramjit Parma's comments, and I'll get our guest in, Aditya and Mr. Giri from Reliance Forex and Reliance Rebel. Aditya, Dr. Paramjit Parma was talking a little bit about, she's obviously a rep from ACT Party List MP. She was talking a little bit about, look, the crime has come down, they've removed red tape, and the health targets have improved. That's what they are. I say, what are you proud of? What have you achieved? From a perspective of, say you, how do you rate this government right now? You think they've done okay, or what do you think? Or, I mean, you have to be honest, because end of the day, you're allowed to have your own view on where we're going.
The government, I think, started off on a platform of austerity, and now that it's finally election year, they've started to spend money, because I feel like that's what they think will get them voters, which is fine, you can do whatever, but I think that they've had a very inconsistent policy platform. I think they have come from a very economically wrong place. Like, we were at a time of a demand-side collapse in the economy where the average person was able to afford things, but companies were still doing things. So I think the fact that they weren't willing to spend on public works projects, or they weren't willing to do that ferry deal properly, or they weren't willing to do the Lake Onslow Dam project, but then now they fast-tracked it. Like, it's just a very inconsistent government.
But they will argue the opposite, because they also they've invested in infrastructure, they've got policies coming out, and I guess you're saying it's coming late.
Yeah.
It hasn't come early, because they will argue they were trying to save money and Labour blew it. So there's always argument. Mr. Giri, how would you rate the performance of this current government?
Yeah, I think when I really started off, when National really got the mandate, we thought they will stick to 8 out of 10. But then if I'm asking myself as to what I would rate, I would say 5 out of 10. I think the balance 3% is perception, because they're not actually selling what they've done. So if you really need to tell the public what you have achieved, you need to be more and more telling exactly what you have done and how much you have progressed. You can't be talking about how much deficit the Labour had left behind, or the chaos that was there around the time with the fiscal chaos.
You
should
can't
be
blame
talking
other
about that.
people.
Yeah.
You have to take
responsibility and say, look, this is what we have done, and this is the way forward for us. We will be growing at. They shouldn't be talking about the growth rate is less than 1% now. We need to be talking about how much further they will take the growth rate to.
Just quickly, Aditya, Superintendent Rakesh Naidu.
Yeah.
He was announced number 13 on the list. That is high, above Priyanka. He is an he is from the police. Your views on this? This is good for Labour. I think it's good for Labour.
Oh, it's definitely good for Labour, because Labour's always been the workers' party, the union party, getting union people involved, and police unions are obviously a big part of the government. But I'm very positive on the choice.
One thing, Mr. Giri, which is a little bit controversial. You're part of the police. You're supposed to be neutral. Supposed to be, because you're in the police. If you had plans to go into government, I'm not so sure. I think that's the only thing I'm not so sure about. So he was always a Labour person working in the police?
Yeah, from what we can gather from what's being released at this point of time, he has been the face of the ethnic community. He's been all the functions that we have seen so far.
He's quite good, actually. People like him.
He's been attending it. And obviously, this is something which shouldn't have happened. It should have been done properly. Looking at the elections coming in the next 4 months, how what difference it would have made if you had resigned and joined the Labour Party and become part number 13 on the list? It wouldn't have made a big difference. It would have been even more morally correct.
That's the
But
thing.
now looking back and saying, oh look, this happened before as well. Now why should Rakesh be doing this? Obviously, Don Brash was at the time Reserve Bank of New Zealand governor, and then he joined ACT as the president, and then he fought the elections as the president of the ACT party, if I remember right.
So
I might be right,
that
I
is
might
in the
not.
past.
Yeah.
But I think people are just. I think people will forget. I'm happy that there is a person who looks like us who is now, because I feel our voice needs to be heard, and I feel we are now become the biggest ethnic group in the country. To be honest, we've gone past the Chinese, definitely the Pacifica, and I feel we need more people representing and having the voice. And that's my personal opinion on this matter. We are running out of time. Right.
But I would like to say
Yeah,
that
yeah.
again, let us not again come back to this question of who represents us.
Yeah.
Everyone in the parliament, whichever party they represent, will have to represent New Zealand and not particularly anyone from this particular race, that particular race. No, I
Yeah.
wouldn't suggest that.
I hope everybody thinks like that.
Yeah, they have to think that way because at the end of the day, they represent, they're voted by the voters.
Yeah.
So I feel that they shouldn't be thinking more in terms of one particular ethnicity.
Well, I'm not sure if Indians are voting for Shane Jones, but like if we have to play. Anyway, Aditya, final, just want to hear from you. What do you think the numbers are? If you were to predict today, what do you think the numbers are coming in? What party's getting how much? Just to put you on the spot.
Put me on the spot as in like who I think's gonna win.
Not just win, but what percentage are they coming in? Like if what do you think Labour's coming in at? What's Labour?
I think it's gonna be. I can't say numbers, but I'm
Yeah.
definitely saying I think Labour will gain seats.
Yeah.
I think National will lose seats to NZ first,
Yeah.
and I think the Greens in the top party will show us something interesting.
But do you think centre right will come in though?
I'm going to agree with. I think the national government has kind of tarnished their own reputation within their own voter base, not even with left-wing Kiwis.
Okay, so you feel the left bloc will.
Yeah, it'll I
Scrape
think.
through.
Yeah, they'll scrape through, and it's like the centre right will go down. I think that's how it's going to go.
Mr. Giri, what do you think?
Yeah, I have a strong feeling that the current government with the current parties, if they win in the same fashion, would probably form the government. Having said that, I would say that the single largest party with about 35 to 36% of the vote polling would be Labour. So they would get the maximum number of seats,
Yeah.
obviously. And then a lot of things again would depend on how much New Zealand First would probably get. Currently, they're looking at about that 11% mark, which is quite high compared to what it was in the previous elections and this 5 months before. But in November, if they cross the 15 or the 16% threshold, the game is different. It's going to be, anyone's guess.
I personally think centre right will scrape through because of NZ First mainly. But let the policies come out. I think people have a short memory. People vote in the moment, and there is still time. There is still policies to come out, and I think National is hiding, and not hiding, but they are saving some of these announcements. Labour has come out with one. They're also saving a few. Anyways, thank you so much, Aditya, Mr. Giri from Reliance. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Oh, sure.